Chosen one, God already moved. Not, he is about to. Not, he is working on it. He moved. Past tense, complete, sealed. And the worry you are still carrying right now is pointing at a problem that no longer exists in the realm where problems are actually solved. I want you to understand what that means, because this is not a message designed to help you feel better about a difficult situation. It is a message to tell you that the situation, the specific one you have turned over so many times you have lost count, has already been addressed in the place where the real addressing happens. There is a gap between when God acts and when we witness the arrival, between the verdict and the delivery, between the case being closed and the notification reaching you. You are in that gap right now. And the anxiety you are living in it is not a warning that something is still wrong. It is proof that your spirit has received the news and your mind has not caught up yet. Two different timelines. One complete answer. Chosen one, you have been worrying in the wrong tense. By the time this message ends, you will know exactly what to do with the one you have been carrying. This is your report. You did not arrive here by accident. The force that placed this in front of you today is the same force that has been quietly working on the very thing you have been afraid to fully trust. You were directed here, and what you are about to hear is going to tell you why. Everything I am going to share with you in this message is completely free. Every word, every truth, every revelation. And if at any point something in your spirit says there is more you need beyond what we cover today, you will find it in the description and the pinned comment below, only when you feel led. Before we go any further, I want to ask you to stay with me until the very end, because by the time this message is finished, you are going to understand something about what you have been carrying that is going to permanently change how you move through your days. You are going to receive 3 specific things you can do right now, exactly where you are, with nothing required except your attention. You are going to hear the truth about the peace that has been visiting you and what it actually is. And you are going to leave this space with a knowing that lands somewhere deeper than your thoughts. What is coming is worth staying for. Let me start where you actually are. I know about the 2 a.m., the moment when the house is quiet and the people around you are finally asleep, and you are lying there with your eyes open, not because you chose to stay awake, but because a thought came back and found you in the silence, the way it always does. Maybe it is something financial. Maybe it is a relationship that still feels unresolved. Maybe it is something about someone you love, something you have prayed about more times than you can count, and still cannot put all the way down when the lights go off. That quiet, patient, exhausting wait in the middle of the night is the burden of someone who believes deeply and is still waiting for the visible evidence to arrive. And before I say anything else, I want to say something to that part of you directly. There are things happening in you right now that most people have never explained. Signs, real ones, and I want to name them because understanding what they actually mean is going to shift everything. The first one, and this is the one nobody talks about, is the sleep. The disrupted, interrupted pattern of lying awake when you intended to rest. You close your eyes, and somewhere in the middle of the night, the mind turns back on. Not from sickness, not from anything physical, just awake, alert, cycling through the same thought again. The world calls that anxiety. But I want to give you a different name for it. That is your spirit standing watch over something it believes is still unresolved. It is loyal, deeply, exhaustingly loyal. And today, you are going to give it permission to stand down. The second sign is the thinking, the mind that will not slow down, especially in the quiet moments. The same scenario running on a loop. Different versions of how this could go, different outcomes your mind keeps trying to prepare for. Most people would call that overthinking. But what it actually is a mind that is still guarding a problem that has already been solved. Still loyal to a threat that no longer exists in the place where threats are actually dealt with. That loyalty is a sign of how much you care. But today, that care is going to find a different home. The third sign is subtler, The way certain environments and certain conversations have started to feel draining in a way they never used to. Drama that once pulled you in now feels pointless. Noise that was easy before now feels like something you cannot afford. That is not you becoming cold or difficult. That is your discernment sharpening, because your spirit senses a season of completion approaching. It is preparing your environment for what is about to arrive in it. The fourth sign is the flash, the moment that arrives without warning, in the middle of the fear where something in you just knows. You cannot explain it. There is no evidence for it. But for one breath, one quiet second, something says, it is going to be okay. And then the mind comes back and argues against it, and you file that moment away as wishful thinking or coping or something you invented to get through the day. I want to tell you something about that moment. That was not wishful thinking. That was your spirit picking up the signal before your mind had the words for it. A transmission from the place where the answer already exists. And the fifth sign, the one that almost looks like coincidence, is the timing. The right word arriving from an unexpected source. The encouragement that shows up exactly when the fear peaked. The moment that feels too precise to be random. That is not coincidence. That is the notification system of heaven beginning to move in the visible world. And it always starts small, before the full delivery arrives. If any of those landed, if 3 or more of them belong to you, you are not in the wrong place. You are exactly where this message was sent. And if that is you, I want to ask you to type something in the comments right now. Just 2 words. I receive. Not as a formula, not as a performance, as a declaration that shifts your posture from reaching towards something to opening your hands for what is already on its way. Type it right now. I receive. Now let me show you something. Because naming the signs is one thing. Understanding what they are actually pointing to, that is what changes everything. Here is the truth I want to give you today. And it is going to sound almost too simple at first. But I need you to let it land fully before you move past it. You have been worrying in the wrong tense. Not the wrong theology. Not the wrong attitude. The wrong tense. The anxiety sitting with you right now, the fear about how this situation is going to resolve, the questions you keep cycling through at night, your mind is pointing toward a future that God has already visited. He did not send the answer after you prayed hard enough. He placed the answer in the timeline before the problem arrived. The timeline you live inside moves forward one moment at a time, but the timeline God operates from does not work that way. When he says it is done, he is not speaking from your present moment. He is speaking from the place where it has already been completed, which means the thing you have been afraid of, the thing you keep trying to prepare for, manage, solve, it is not ahead of you. From where God stands, it is already behind him. Think of it this way. Imagine your situation is a legal case, and the verdict has already been declared. The judge has ruled. The gavel came down, the record is sealed and filed. But the messenger has not yet reached you with the official notice. You are still sitting in the waiting room, still rehearsing your arguments, still going over the evidence in your mind, afraid of an outcome that has already been decided in your favor. That is exactly where you are right now. Not because you have failed, not because your faith is weak, but because nobody told you the case is already closed. God did not say, I will look into this. He said past tense, permanent, settled, it is done. I want to pause here for just a moment. If something just shifted in the way you understand what you have been carrying, even slightly, stay with that. You do not have to figure out what to do with it right now. You do not have to resolve everything before this message ends. Just sit with the feeling of what it would mean if this were true. If the verdict was already in, if the case was already closed, if the worry was not a warning but a gap, just breathe into that. Good. Now let me go deeper. Because what I have just described, the wrong tense, the verdict, the gap, that is still only the surface. What I want to show you now goes underneath it. And it is the part that changes how you understand every single prayer you have ever sent. Here is what I want you to understand about how God speaks. When he declares something done, he is not speaking from a position of planning, not, "I intend to handle this." He speaks from the position of completion, from the place where the outcome already exists and is permanently established. And this is not a new idea. This is the consistent pattern of how he has always operated. There is a man whose story I want to bring into this right now. His name was Abraham. And the thing that most people miss about his story is that God never gave him a prediction. He gave him a declaration. He did not say, "I plan to give you a son." He called the son into existence before the son existed in visible form, because in the divine record, he already did. Abraham had to walk in the done before he could see the evidence. He had to hold a truth that looked impossible to everyone around him, navigate from it through years of silence, carry it when nothing on the outside confirmed it, before the visible proof finally arrived. Abraham was not a man of unusual strength. He had fear. There were moments when he tried to arrange the outcome himself, because the waiting was long and the evidence was silent. But somewhere in that journey, something shifted in him. He stopped navigating toward the promise, and he started navigating from it. That shift from toward to from is the shift I want to give you today. There was another man who understood this with a kind of precision that stopped an entire crowd silent. A military officer who came to Jesus with a servant near death, and when Jesus offered to travel to the house, this man stopped him. He said, "You do not need to come, just say the word, and it will be done." He understood that the declaration itself was the completion. The authority behind the spoken word was the finished thing. Jesus looked at him and said, "I have not seen this kind of understanding anywhere in this city." That understanding that the word spoken is the thing done is what I want to give you today. And there is a word in the ancient language that captures all of this better than anything in English. When Jesus spoke his final words from the cross, he used a single word, tetelestai. Most translations render that, "as it is finished." But in the commercial world of that time, in the language of merchants, debt collectors, and legal records, this was the exact word stamped across an account when the balance had been paid in full. Not almost done, not getting closer, paid, account closed, nothing left to owe. The stamp is on the record. When God says it is done over your situation, that is the language he is using, not the language of encouragement, the language of completion. The debt of that problem has been paid, the account is closed, and the record exists in a place that does not change based on what your eyes can see today. Now, I want to say something about the season you have been walking through, because I think you need to hear this before we continue. The waiting, the long stretch, where the answer was not yet visible, where you kept praying and nothing seemed to shift. On the outside, it was not punishment. There are things that had to form in you before the completion could arrive in visible form. A strength that only comes under sustained pressure. A clarity about who you are and what you will no longer accept that only develops in the silence. And certain people, certain environments, certain old arrangements had to move because they could not exist in the frequency of what was coming. The season was not wasted. Everything it formed in you is part of what you are walking toward. But here is what I have not told you yet. And this is the question at the center of everything. If God's done, is this real? If the tetelestai stamp is this permanent, then why does the worry keep coming back? Why does it find you in the tuam, even after you pray and release it? What is the relationship between the anxiety that is still real and the completion that has already been declared? That answer is the deepest layer of what this message was sent to say, and I am going to take you there right now. But before I do, there is something I want to briefly put in front of you. Researchers studying how the brain processes certainty versus threat have documented a specific brain state associated with clarity, intuition, and what they describe as receiving mode. a state where the mind is open to what is already present, rather than scanning for what might go wrong. There is a 7-minute audio tool called the Genius Song that works with brain entrainment technology to support exactly that kind of shift. If that is something your spirit is drawn to as you hear this today, the information is in the description and the pinned comment below, only if you feel led. Now let me take you to the deepest truth of this message. Let me tell you about the peace. The peace that visits you without warning, in the middle of the fear. The one that arrives for a breath, a second, a brief quiet moment, and then the mind comes back and argues against it, and you file it away as wishful thinking, or coping, or something you created to get through the day. That peace was not your imagination. That peace was the delivery signal. Think about what actually happens when God completes something, when the gavel falls in that courtroom, when the tetelestai stamp goes on the record. The first thing dispatched is not the visible evidence. The first thing dispatched is a frequency, a signal that the completion exists. And because your spirit is more sensitive than your mind has ever been given credit for, it picks up that signal before your eyes can see anything. Every time that peace arrived and you dismissed it, you were receiving a transmission and filing it as noise. The case was already closed. The peace was the notification. That is not denial. That is the first delivery. The thing arrived in frequency before it arrived in form. Now here is the part I want to address honestly. Because even with everything I have said, the anxiety is still real. And that reality deserves a real answer. There are two things happening in you at the same time, and they are not contradictions. They are two parts of the same story. The first is what I would call the doubt pattern. The mind that has been through difficulty before does not trust quiet easily. It has learned that good things can disappear. So even when the peace arrives, even when something in you says this is going to be okay, the mind resists fully settling into it. It asks, what if I am wrong? What if I let my guard down and miss something? What if trusting this means I drop the ball? And that is not a character flaw. That is a reasonable response from a part of you that learned to survive by staying alert. The second thing is the need to hold on. The part of you that has been managing this situation carefully, responsibly, the part that believes if you stop worrying, you might drop the ball. As if worry is a form of faithfulness. As if keeping the problem in front of you means you are taking it seriously. Both of those responses make sense. Neither of them changes what is actually true. And the goal right now is not to turn off the mind. The goal is to give it a more accurate signal to work from. So let me give you 3 specific things you can do right now, exactly where you are. You do not need to move. You do not need anything you do not already have. The first one is the simplest. Every time the fear surfaces, I want you to notice the tense it is operating in. Most worry sounds like this. I am afraid this will not resolve. What if it gets worse? How is this going to end? All of it pointing forward, into an open future. And what I want you to practice, not as a pretense, just as a deliberate choice, is to shift one step. This has already been handled. I am waiting for visible confirmation. You are not pretending. You are choosing the more accurate statement of what is real. Over time, that single shift retrains the lens from scanning for threat to watching for delivery. The second practice requires nothing from your body. At some point today, I want you to walk through one ordinary moment as if you have already received the news that it is handled. Not performing peace. Not forcing a feeling you do not have. Just try the posture of someone who already knows. Notice how it sits in you, even for 30 seconds. That posture is not fake. That is what receiving feels like in the body, before the visible confirmation arrives. And trying it even once begins to make space for the real thing to land. The third practice is the most immediate. The next time the peace visits you, that unexplained, seemingly irrational sense that everything is okay, do not dismiss it. Do not argue with it. Just say internally, quietly, I receive this. This is the signal. And let it stay as long as it stays. You are not manufacturing peace. You are simply stopping yourself from filing the deliveries in the wrong folder. Now, I want to do something with you before we move to the final piece. Stay exactly where you are. If you are driving, keep your eyes on the road and let this reach you through sound only. If you are still, let your hands rest somewhere comfortable. Picture an envelope. Your name is on it. The seal is already pressed. On the outside, in simple, plain letters, it reads, "Done." This envelope was sent before you began to worry. It was in transit before the fear arrived. And right now, in this moment, you are reaching out your hand and you are receiving it. You are holding it. And somewhere lower than your thoughts, lower than where the arguments live, you are letting those 4 letters land. Done. Not eventually. Already. The thing you have been carrying, it was addressed. It was paid. It was sent with your name on it. That is the envelope. And it belongs to you. Now, before I take you to the deepest piece of everything this message has been building toward, I need you to understand something. Not in theory. For the actual thing you carried into this space with you today. Because what you are about to hear is the word that has been trying to reach you through every delay, every silence, every night you lay awake wondering if God was still there. And once it lands, once it really lands, you will have language for what has been happening in your spirit for a long time. Here is the deepest truth. God never asked you to carry the solution. He asked you to carry the peace. And those are not the same assignment. Let that land for a moment. He said, "It is done." That means the solution is His, the timeline is His, the delivery is His. And your assignment, the one He actually gave you, is to remain in the posture of someone who knows it is settled, not to manage the outcome, not to figure out the how, not to orchestrate what He has already orchestrated, to carry the peace. That is the full assignment. And here is what the confusion has been costing you. Every time you pick the worry back up, even with the best intention, even out of love, even out of faithfulness, you were carrying an assignment that was never yours to hold. You were standing guard over a courtroom that had already cleared out, keeping watch on a door that God had already sealed, stamped, and moved away from. I want to tell you about someone, a woman. She had been carrying the fear of losing her home for 11 months, praying every day, believing as best she could, releasing the worry in prayer, and then finding it back in her hands by morning, because nothing on the outside ever shifted, not one visible sign. And then one morning, without any phone call, without any change in the circumstances, she woke up and felt something she had not been expecting. Peace. Not because the situation had changed, because something in her had finally stopped reaching and started receiving. She said later, "I thought I was in denial. I thought I had just run out of the energy to be afraid, but it was not that. Something in me settled." And 2 weeks after that morning, the situation resolved in a way she had never planned, through a door she had never thought to knock on, in a time frame that made no logical sense from where she had been standing. The peace came first. The resolution followed. That is what tetelestai looks like when it begins to move from the invisible into the visible. And it always starts the same way, with a morning like hers. And I hear the Father saying this over you right now. The thing you have been holding, the specific weight you carried into this message today, it is not in my hands because I have not gotten to it yet. It is not in my hands because I am still working on it. It is not in my hands because there is nothing left to hold. It has been settled. It has been paid. The envelope was sent before you began to carry it. And the peace that visited you, the one you almost dismissed, the one you filed away as wishful thinking, that was my notification to you. That was me saying, it is already on its way. Do not pick it back up. Let the assignment I actually gave you be enough. The peace, the trust, the posture of someone who knows, because it is already done. Now let me tell you who you are in this. You are someone who carries truth before it is visible. That is not a burden you stumbled into. That is a specific calling. The one who holds a knowing before the evidence arrives, who navigates from certainty before the world can confirm it. That is you. This season did not disqualify you from that role. It trained you for it. You have also been a seer in ways you have not fully recognized. You have been picking up signals all along, the peace that visited without reason, the timing that was too precise to dismiss, the word from an unexpected source at the exact moment you needed it. You have been receiving transmissions. Now you know what to do with them. Now you receive them intentionally. You are an intercessor in the deepest sense. You have been carrying in prayer what other people could not even name. That weight is real. But God never assigned you to carry the anxiety of the outcome. He assigned you to hold the space for its arrival. Those are two very different things, and today the first one is lifted. And you are a peacemaker. Not because you avoid difficulty, but because when you inhabit the peace that belongs to you, when you receive it and let it settle in you, your very presence becomes a declaration that it is done, that heaven has ruled, that the storm is over, even before the horizon shows it. Now hear what all of this reframes. What felt like silence in this season was not God withholding. That was God having already spoken from a place you could not yet hear. What felt like abandonment was not heaven looking away. That was protection, clearing the road of what could not travel with you into what was coming. What felt like prayer hitting a ceiling and returning unanswered was not prayer wasted. That was the answer already in transit, moving through the gap between the invisible and the visible. And what you called your greatest fear, the thing you have been lying awake over God, called your last threshold, before the arrival. Before I share one final thing with you, I want to lay plainly on the table what we have covered today, because I want you to leave this space with something clear in your hands, not just something felt. Here is what is true. The worry you have been carrying is present tense thinking about a past tense problem. God spoke over your situation from the position of completion, not planning, not intention, but done. And operating in the wrong tense has been the source of the exhaustion, not a sign of weak faith. Second, when God says done, he means what the ancient word means, tetelestai, paid in full, account, closed. Not eventually, already. And the record exists in a place that does not change based on what your eyes can see today. And third, the peace that has been visiting you is not wishful thinking. It is a delivery notification, the first signal of what is already in transit. Your assignment is to receive it, not argue with it. You came in carrying something heavy. I want you to leave with those three things settled in you. If this message has done something in you today, if something shifted, even a small degree, I want to ask you to do one thing before I share the last piece. There is someone in your life right now who is in their own someone who has gone unusually quiet lately, someone who has pulled back in a way that looks like distance but is really exhaustion, someone carrying something alone that they have not told anyone. Send this to them, not as a general forward, as a deliberate act, because you know what it felt like to finally hear this. Give that to the person who has not heard it yet. Now let me share something with you before we close. And I want to be honest about what this is, so it sits in the right place. What we have talked about today, the gap between the mind catching up to what the spirit has already received, the difference between scanning for threat and being open to what is already present, that is not only a spiritual concept, it is documented in neuroscience. Researchers at Princeton, MIT, Harvard, and several other leading research institutions have spent decades studying a specific brainwave state that is active when the mind is operating in its highest mode of receiving intuition and clarity. They call it gamma frequency. In children, before approximately age 7, this frequency is naturally and consistently high. Learning is effortless. Intuition is strong. The mind moves without resistance. But as life accumulates, as stress patterns form, and the world conditions the brain toward vigilance and self-protection, this frequency fades. Researchers documented this pattern and gave it a name: the decline effect. Not a disease. A gradual dimming of what was always native to the brain. And what they also confirmed is that this state can be reactivated through a specific form of audio technology called brain entrainment, which works with the brain's natural tendency to match the frequencies it hears. The gamma state can be restored without medication, without years of practice, without a clinical setting. What connects this directly to everything we have discussed today at a neurological level is this. What the gamma state supports is precisely the shift from scanning for danger to recognizing what is already present, from threat mode to receiving mode. The exact shift this entire message has been pointing toward. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years building on this foundation, working from the documented research to develop something anyone could use. No background required, no specialized equipment. What he built is a 7-minute digital audio track. You put on headphones, you sit, you listen. The brain does what it was always designed to do. I want to tell you about someone who used it during a season that will sound familiar. A woman, a caregiver, someone who had been managing everything for everyone for a long time, running on low reserves. She started listening for 7 minutes each morning, not with dramatic expectations, just consistently. What she noticed first was not a breakthrough, it was a quieting. The mental cycling that used to run on its own in the background began to slow. The gap between the peace arriving and the moment her mind argued against it, that gap began to widen. And over the weeks that followed, she described something she had not felt in years. The sense that her mind was finally operating from the same understanding as her spirit. More than 18,000 people have used this, and fewer than 4 out of every 100 have requested a refund. That means over 96% continued past the guarantee window. That is not a sales number. That is what it looks like in real terms when something actually produces a real shift. Now I want to be direct with those of you who have tried a lot of things. The apps, the courses, the retreats, the practices. This is not a meditation technique. It is not a mindfulness program. You do not need a specific background, a quiet room, or a particular posture. You put on headphones and listen for 7 minutes. That is the full requirement. And if the price is a real consideration, especially in a season that has already asked a great deal of you financially, I want to say something before you make any decision. That hesitation is understandable. I respect it. So, let me tell you exactly what this looks like. It is called the Genius Song. The original price is $49. For those in this message specifically, Dr. Robert Lake has authorized $39, not as a promotional device, but because his mission has always been to reach the people who are ready to receive, not to maximize the transaction. This price is not available on any other platform. When you access it at $39, you receive the 7-minute track built from Dr. Lake's 34 years of documented research. And with it, at no additional cost, 4 resources with a combined value of $80. The first is the Genius Child, a version of the audio calibrated specifically for children, designed to protect the gamma frequency before the decline effect has fully taken hold, valued at $19. The second is the original book that the film The Secret drew its entire framework from, not the film, the source text. A grounded practical work on the principles at the core of what we discussed today, valued at $20. The third is a 22-minute guided visualization that moves through 4 domains of life: your finances, your relationships, your health, and your peace, valued at $29. And the fourth is a 5-habit infographic documenting the daily practices that maintain the gamma state long after the initial activation, valued at $12. That is $80 in additional resources included. Now let me tell you why I am bringing this to you in this specific message and why today matters. The reason I am sharing this here in a message about receiving what has already been declared done is that the gap between knowing something and actually experiencing it can remain a gap forever unless a step is taken toward it. This is an invitation to take that step, and it is an invitation that exists at this specific price because of a current arrangement with Dr. Lake. I cannot guarantee this price will be in place when you return tomorrow. I am not saying that to pressure you. I am saying it because I want you to have the full picture. And if at any point in the next 90 days you feel this is not right for you for any reason, with no conditions required, you receive a full refund. Every dollar, and every one of the 4 bonuses, all $80 of them, stays with you regardless. Which means the actual decision in front of you is this. Do you want to try something for $39, knowing the absolute worst case is that you walk away with $80 in resources and your money returned? One more thing before I direct you to the link. There are versions of brain entrainment audio appearing online from sources not connected to Dr. Lake's research. The specificity of the frequencies is what makes the technology work. A close imitation is not just ineffective, it can produce the opposite of what you are looking for. The only verified source is the link in the description and the pinned comment below. If your spirit is drawn to this, not as a replacement for what only God can do, but as a practical support for the shift, you are already in the middle of the information is below. Move when you feel led, and not too long after you feel led. Now, let me close. You came into this message worrying in the wrong tense. Something has shifted here, not because of anything I said, because of what was already true and what you were finally ready to receive. Completion in the invisible always precedes manifestation in the visible. The peace is the bridge between those two realities, and now you know what to do when the peace arrives. You are not alone in this. Right now, all across this world, people who carried the same weight you brought into this space are receiving the same report. Their looks like your Their signs, their doubt, their flashes of inexplicable peace that they almost dismissed, all of it mirrors yours. You are part of something much larger than one person's fear in the dark. I want to take a breath with you before I speak over your life. You stayed. Through every revelation, through every reframe, through the moments this asked something of you. Something changed today. I believe you felt it. Father, we arrive at this moment together. You have seen every weight carried into this space, every night spent in the waiting room of a case that had already been decided, every prayer that felt like it returned unanswered, when really the answer had already been released long before the prayer was spoken. You see all of it, and you called it done before any of us arrived here. I want to ask you to do something right now. Wherever you are, stay there. No need to move. Picture the specific thing you carried into this message. The exact weight, the shape of it, the feeling of it, you know what it is. Now picture it as something real in your hands, and feel, for a moment, how long you have been holding it. The faithfulness of that, the love underneath it, the exhaustion of it. And now, not because you are giving up, not because you are pretending it does not matter, but because heaven has already handled it, open your hands. Picture the weight leaving them. Let it go back to the one who took it before you ever picked it up. You were never meant to carry the solution, only the peace. That release is real. Let it stay. Now hear this over your life. You are someone who carries truth before it is seen. You are someone who holds peace before it arrives. You are someone whose spirit receives what your eyes have not yet witnessed. That is not a burden, that is the mark. And I hear the Father say, well done, now receive. The thing you have been afraid of, let it be what it already is, finished, paid, on its way. The case is closed. The envelope is in transit. You are allowed to stand up from the waiting room. And so it is. Do not close this yet. Just sit for a moment. Nowhere to go. Nothing to figure out. The work is done. Just receive. If something in this message landed, if even one thing shifted in how you understand what you have been carrying, I want to invite you to type 2 words in the comments right now. I am ready. Not when you feel ready. Right now. Because every time you declare it, something in the atmosphere recognizes it as true. Type it. I am ready. And if you know someone who is in their own 2am tonight, someone who has gone unusually quiet, someone who has pulled away in a way that looks like distance but is really exhaustion, someone carrying something alone that they have not told anyone, share this with them as a deliberate act of love, because you know what it felt like to finally receive this word. Give it to the person who has not received it yet. And if you sense there is more for you in this space, that what you received today is part of something larger, you are meant to keep walking and stay. More is coming. Chosen one. You came in with weight. You are leaving with a word. It is done.